Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Policing the Policy, a Youth Perspective. This is a show that looks at young people that are in power and also the involvement of the youth in terms of government policies in Zimbabwe. My name is Yahya Goodvibes all the time, and today I'm joined by Mr. Terrence Mukupe, who is the former Deputy Minister of Finance, and today our topic is the involvement of the youth in governance and finance. Mr. Mukupe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so before I go any further, the viewers would like to know who is Mr. Terrence Mukupe.
Terrence Mukupe, a guy who grew up in Ferguson. Trained as an investment banker in New York, so I've lived both lifestyles. And over and above that, I consider myself to be an investment banker by training. And I'm someone who's more interested in poverty alleviation and the good governance of our country.
Oh, wow, that's quite interesting. But maybe on a social level, how many kids do you have? Just a rumor, just to clear the air.
The ones that I know, 5 boys and 5 girls.
The ones that you know?
You never know.
Oh, okay. All right, so to kickstart the interview, I'd like to ask you, when you were in power, when you were in the ministry as the Deputy Minister of Finance, were the youth ever consulted in terms of any policies? I think
the only time that you ever really see the youth is when it comes to galas, when you're having the youth galas, and I think when we're having the political rallies. But I think when it comes to issues of proper policy decisions, be it from a parliamentary point of view, when parliamentarians are going all over the country and they're engaging with the citizenry, you never find any youths. And then also when it comes to being in the office, in government offices, I never got to see any youths who would come to the office to say they have this policy issue that they wanted enacted, or they had this big transaction, that they're working on, that they would want funded, or that they needed government help for. Or they even have investors that have come from outside the country.
Okay.
And they needed the ear of the government, or they needed to be taken to the president. You'd hardly ever find that. And it's really sad that, given the unemployment levels that we have in the country, generally our youths are, in a despondent state, dejected state. It's tough that after you finish your A-levels, your O-levels, you're teaching, manesi and everything, there are just not any jobs out there.
Yes.
So you find as a result, that state of despair colonizes the mind. And that's why you find that for the most part, my youth are now, if they're not, taking drugs, they are now being fed into this whole frenzy. You could just throw stones at the government, just have this feeling that nothing ever works in this country.
Yes, that's true.
So the end result is good. You need to go to a Goli, you need to go to London, you need to go to all these places and do these menial jobs.
Okay, that's quite interesting. But looking at your answer to another extent, were you able also to reach out to the youth? Good. Okay, you are now in power, you have the power in your hands. Were you able also to extend your reach to the youth? Maybe they couldn't come to your office because of certain reasons. Kutoshaya ruzivo, kutosha, kana kutoti, but also when you're in power, were you able to reach out to the youth?
What you have to realize is this, at a general level, I'll address that question at a general level and also at a personal level. At a general level, the human mind is a selfish mind. You have to understand that. So if you don't come to me, it will take a lot for me to come to you. Okay. Because you're the one who's in need. Because once I'm in power, the general feeling is that I'm in power and so you're the one who needs me. You're the one who wants me to do something for you. So you're the one who's supposed to come with your ideas and your thought processes. All I can do is yes, I can put an enabling environment, come up with the legislature to say for instance, right now, 20% of the youths, 20% of all government projects should go to the youths. You've got the legislation. But if the youths are not coming, my youth, there's this. But you find, on a personal level, I took it upon myself that I got involved with the ZICOSU, Zimbabwe Congress of Students Union, and I don't think there's any institution in Zimbabwe I didn't go to where I gave public lectures on what the Ministry of Finance was all about, the state of our economy, how the youth could participate. And also in terms of my constituency, yes, I would engage the youth, but that's for personal, selfish reasons. You know,
That's
so I would
true.
have to engage my youth. But in terms of the youth in the country per se, outside of the youths that were in Zikosu, they have to come to you.
Okay.
That's a sad reality.
Wow. Okay, I actually got that. It's not fun. Okay, all right. So I would like to ask, generally, as Zimbabwe, my budget with the Ministry of Finance, are the youth involved in budget?
It's sad. I think it's really sad that, like, the general person or your average youth does not even know what the budget is all about.
Yes.
They will know of good Mutuli, they will know good Mangojga. And when they think of Mutuli and Mangojga, all they're thinking about is good foreign currency. All they're thinking about is good, like, things are now expensive. Rate and everything. But like you understand?
Yes.
You know, when you produce the budget, like I always say, 9 times out of 10, or probably 100% of the youths, no one knows what's a blue book.
Okay.
And like a blue book is where you're going to find all the budgets of all the ministries, all the line items in terms of what each ministry is going to spend their money on. So if a ministry is going to spend probably $1 million on stationery, you're going to find that in the blue book.
Okay.
So if I want to set up a business as a youth person, I'll tell you this, the richest person in Zimbabwe is government. If you're not dealing with government, you're not going to become a multi-millionaire. Otherwise, if you're going to become a multi-millionaire outside of dealing with government, chances are you're stealing from government.
Right.
That's the stage. So you find good one. I know you've my duties. People who are not paying their taxes. You're stealing from government.
Okay.
So it's either you choose that, like, oh yeah, I'm selling groceries into the country, groceries from South Africa. I always hear this. You'll have people who say, my trucks are bringing groceries into Zimbabwe and there's fire. But like when you then look at it, all they're doing is that they're not paying their duties. They're stealing from government.
Yes.
Or you can be a person who would like, okay, I'm going to go to and approach government. What would my prepaid meters? And I give them my prepaid meters. Chairman caps and everything and what. But like at the end of the day, all I'm just saying is that, like, if you're going to do proper business, ethical business, and you're thinking of making millions of dollars as a young person, you have to engage government.
Okay.
It is what it is. It's something that you cannot ignore.
All right, but back on the blue book, Saga, anyone who you to in Zimbabwe, you can go to the appropriate ministry and blue book.
Yes. You can go to the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
Soon after Tuli has announced the budget, the blue book is available.
Okay.
Go and ask for the blue book. Study it. Look at the line items. See, go to the Ministry of Tourism. Where are they spending their money? If you're someone who's thinking of setting up a lodge, what not, like, there are these conferences that they're going to be held. Go and find out what sort of place do you want to have the conferences for the next year. Then go get Brako.
Okay.
That's easy money. But like, I think what then happens is that, like, when those tenders come out and everything, when this one get like, corruption.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I like statement
Okay.
but like, if you're just going to be ghetto or garaba corner and all you're just doing is complaining, fire.
All right.
You get it?
That's quite interesting. I was getting caught up with the conversation. But now you're talking about how we as the youth approach government. We need to go there. We need to know the policies. We need to be educated. But also, can you further explain how we can increase participation of the youth in terms of government policies in any other ministries? How can you increase the participation of youth in terms of anything that has to do with the government?
I think there's two sides to that question. I love Mugabe, brilliant statesman, brilliant president as far as I'm concerned, right? He had these weaknesses, and I think the problem that everyone had in the country was this issue, the time had come for him to retire.
Yes.
And I think that's the only problem that anyone really had now Mugabe. When you look at his legacy in terms of what he did, from 1980 up to the time that he left the country, he really moved the country forward from an education, health, and all sorts of things, right? But she legacy chakasiwa from that was Gudwanando Filapazgar. So you find as a result, like I would be surprised with like you go into the Ministry of Finance, you'd have guys who've been in that ministry from the time that I was in grade 1, and he's sitting in the ministry.
Yes.
So my thing is that it then becomes difficult for a young person to go in there and try and sit down with Zigogo,
They don't understand.
and you think like you can be able to break through to them. You find like when you've got your brilliant ideas, you've got so many young people who've been outside the country, brilliant minds, brilliant ideas. They try and go into government and talk to these guys.
Yes.
There's a lot of arrogance in terms of some of the civil service, right? And my thing is that like if the president, mukuru wenyika kana takataura kuti nezvakamboitika kare, vamunangagwa nyange vatapire sei 10 years dzavo dzikakwana vanhu vanoenda kumusha. And if we can say that to Amnangagwa, why can't we say that to even my permanent secretaries? We have to have term limits. I've been on record saying, like, you find people like Anthony Mandiwanza, we go daily board. He's been CEO for over 20, I may not so many years. When I was in primary school, he's still sitting there.
Yes.
People need to learn to retire and give space for younger people to move in. Right? So, if Madara Elu are not creating space for the young people to move in, that's why you then find the youths, one person around garage, ichi, gachi, dejao, it's also we've got no space in it. And I'll give you a good example. I was in Rwanda. One of my friends who I was with in America was invited to come back to Rwanda, straight from being a Wall Street banker to run the power agency, the equivalent of ZESA, in Rwanda. And he was paid the same amount of money he was earning in New York. So when I got there, I then noticed like every parastatal in Rwanda, they had young people that had been trained to America, to England, South Africa. Young people that had been exposed, Harvard degrees and all these things, running these corporations. So it took the president to realize that, like, you know what? The only way I can make sure that my country goes forward, let's bring in these young people who are still tainted.
Exactly.
How do you have someone who's been sitting in the central bank for over 20 years, who we all know that he has got a building that he owns, and surely do you think that person is going to be motivated to work? He's not. So I think it also, from a policy point of view, I would say, as the government of the day, we need to introduce term limits in certain key positions so that we create space for the young people.
Yes.
Kanawaita basa is a director for 10 years dzako dzakwana. Chena unorima chakakupa munda. You let the young people move in.
Wow, that's quite interesting. But also you gave an example of Rwanda. I would like to give an example of Namibia. Namibia right now, the Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Technology is 23 years old right now, and it's big.
Yes.
I'm 23, but I'm here. So in terms of making sure when you're in power, did you have maybe that space maybe to know maybe but is it pani possibility
Yahya Goodvibes. Yahya Goodvibes. Yes. You're making the same mistake that I pointed out. Hakuna mnanokushedza kuti pana papaita gorid, paita dopi.
Okay.
There's nothing like that. So right? So let me take you back. Look at the first cabinet in Zimbabwe. What were the ages of all those guys? They're in their 20s.
I was not surprised.
I remember there was a talk when people were calculating age. She's 50 years old, but you can tell at what age did she become politically active. Could she then realize you have to go out there and fight for what's yours? So now the youth paneka sense people give I hear the notion that some right there the issue that marry, but those young guys are not telling Europa mjuru what were their ages, right? And then there's also this issue you get it?
All right.
It's almost like if I set up an enterprise, right? Obviously, my son is going to try and force me out with digital company. But until he fights for it, I'm not going to let him come in. It's human nature. So the issue we've got a youth body in Zimbabwe. It is so passive. They think the way you become activist is by you becoming anti-government.
Yes.
It gets you nowhere, right? But if you want to do and engage the people that are in power, engage them intellectually, engage them. Some corner. Do you realize, Kuti, the Zimbabwean? I'll give you another example. According to the Zimbabwean constitution, right, and Zimbabwean statutes, I can come up with a law that I want enacted in Zimbabwe and take it to parliament as a petition. Parliament is forced to debate it and then be passed into law. But when was the last time you've had a private citizen going with a piece of legislation to government? You get it? So it has become a space entertainment, and it's the ignorance that's in our young people. And yes, in some way I think with that ignorance, it's because those that are in power will never come out to you and tell you of all your full rights.
Yes.
Right?
Or even educate us
about
your policies actually.
They'll never educate you fully. And then also the young people on the end, they don't take the time to go out there and really understand the governance,
okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So kono endesa mteuro wako ndo kwaunopindura. Ukaendesa mteuro wako kuna Jesu uchapindurwawo naMwari waJesu handiti. Ukaendesa mteuro wako kuna anoita zvemashari uchapindurwawo nezvemashari handiti. Ukaendesa mteuro wako kuHarvest House uchabvawo nekuHarvest House. Ukaendesa kuState House unowana zvinokodzera neState House. So it depends where you want to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I just want to have this conversation. It's a friend of a friend. Yes. We're talking. Angane idea. It was a good project, but it had to do with involving the council. My council, so they say, Zimbabwe, my province. It was a very good project. I can submit a project. It went through the different protocols. My office, team. But project. It wanted certain amount of funding. And so pakanetsa kuti yamirire nyaya yakabva yatongopera sekutamba sekuseka takatanga tichaita hope pezvo tonoti hapachisina chinhu. But imi when you're in office were there kanyaya yekuti maitoitawo maproject aifandwa kuti aiwa project yanhingi taidarika timupe mari yakati pane maproject. Can you state example of projects amakatomboita when you're in office emayouth aifandwa maproject anga aripo akaitwa nemayouth edu yekuti this and this and say ministry yefinance takafanda so
okay, so I need to explain to you something about the Ministry of Finance.
Yes.
Which is so it will help you. You do not bring a project to the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
Because the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Finance kuverenga mari.
Alright.
Neku account for mari, nekuipatsanura kuti badara icho. Do basa Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
You're more of an accountant. Okay, no, it's a toll gate, but with a bridge, there's a toll gate at that river. And you go to the Ministry of Water.
Okay. Ministry
of Water or present project. So. But what I need from Ministry of Finance, I need guarantees. So what happens is Ministry of Water then takes your project and brings it to Ministry of Finance. And Ministry of Finance, the only question they will be asking is it viable? So, which means you're not going to have feasibility, like the So we then carry out due diligence around it, and then give you whatever it is that you want.
Okay.
So it's not like you come directly to the Ministry of Finance or in a project. Any project that you have falls into some line ministry. They're tourism, they're health, they're environment. So it goes through that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like, yes, what you're talking about, you're good, like you bring in a project and then you get famba, that happens a lot. And that's the problem. That's the issues, the corruption that have to be rooted out of the government. Because remember, you're still having people who is part of system from you get it? And we are still having those people. So you find with like, yes, you can have this change at the top, you go to government, change. But anima strings the government. It's not Ramdangago. It's that officer who's sitting in that building. So Ramdangago can come up with a policy, you could like, yes, any project so we can accept those projects, but they have to go through processing. So process. You make sure that he frustrates it until you pay him something. Exactly. So that's rampant. So I think that's where you then I'm happy with like there is now SACU you know, SACU and ZACC, which are all like my anti-corruption units. I can see they're doing some work, but like I think we have to get into this situation when you find the people are not doing their jobs, scream.
Okay.
Go above them.
All right.
And make the necessary noise. Because people, you know, some of these people, each people that couch a good, like, if I'm not paid, but by fund.
And I'm also to benefit of a project.
And that's better. Oh, to project, they deny it, and then the next thing is what to wearing up and use. Project that happens.
Yeah.
But like I think that's where you then have to have a situation with, like, you know, when things like that happen, don't remain quiet. Make noise about it. And I know from personal experience, I've had situations where, you know, I had a situation where you actually have a project. Before I was a minister, you have a project, you put in your paper, and then the next thing also, I'll go announce a project here, I'll go announce summer. But yes. Make so much noise. Make so much noise good here. So you must have that mindset.
That's a good point. So moving on to something more interesting, generally, nowadays Zimbabwe, you see informal sector outside. Hustlers, white collar jobs, formally employ government or private entities. But how best can we help that situation in Zimbabwe? Because Mazono feel that a proper job. Yeah.
It's actually normal. We need to actually promote that hustling mentality.
Okay.
The people that develop any nation are your middle income people. The people that take forward any industry are the small to medium enterprises. It's not like your mega deals. Because my mega deals, it's once in a blue moon.
Okay.
Right? So if you're going to develop the SME space, that SME space is developed by hustlers. So now, if we've got a lot of people that want to be hustling, right, then it's the duty of government to say, okay, how do we make sure our banks accommodate these people? Because the problem that you have in Zim is that, like, if you want to access financing, you need to genuine. But like, for me, you know, I need some capital. You approach the banking system. The banking system, yes. They then tell you to bring collateral. Do that in ordinary Zimbabwe, how many people have actually got collateral? So that's why you find then government then moves into that space. Command agriculture without any collateral. But look at how successful it has been. Go out there and see the maize that's out there. So I think the reason why then government comes in and fills that space, it's because my bank said I'm not playing ball. It's because my bank said you are controlled from outside. Look at every black business person, Akaita become somebody in Zimbabwe. It's because you had people like Wana Trust Bank, Wana Royal Bank, Wana Kingdom Bank,
yes.
You know, Wana Century Bank. They were the banks that were supporting my black entrepreneurs. But like we let those institutions actually collapse. Because these foreign banks, Wana First Capital Bank, Wana Stanchart, Wana Stanbic, you know what? They come here to collect money from you. They don't come here to give you money. And you find when they give money, Delta.
Okay.
But the people that need capital are really like, you know, your mom and pop shops.
Yes.
Those are the people that you should be saying to them, what are your sales on a weekly basis? You're selling $10,000 every week. I want your business to grow to $20,000. Dikupe loan. You know, so we have to make sure that like our banking system evolves. So those people that are hustlers, I've got no problem with them. As long as also we take some to you.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
I understand you're worked as a CEO for a bank, and you gave out a good example, Kuti. We should give out Kunimachi of Asana collateral, right? But in Zimbabwe, so is to say now there's no way, Kuti, we can have my startup loans MIU. I want to start my project like I'm talking about. So there's no way you can get a startup loan without any collateral.
You know what? I'll give you an example. I think. You know, within the political space, sometimes there's this thing in which, you know, paint and...
I understand you've worked as a CEO for a bank, And so in Zimbabwe, you're talking about collateral in terms of getting a loan. So hakuna any other way kuti isusu my youth, let's say I want to start up my business, I want to get a loan, so there's no way you can get a loan in Zimbabwe.
You know what? I think this whole issue of collateral is overglorified. You can actually be able to give out loans without any collateral at all. I'll give you a very simple example. There's one very successful business that was very successful in Zimbabwe, and that was the Ocean perfume business that was started by Madame Mushaninga or something like that. I'm forgetting a full name. I remember she empowered so many thousands of women, and their model was very simple. You would come, you get perfumes worth $100. You go and sell for a month, and then at the end of the month, you come and cash in. And guess what? All she would need from you is that, like, you just need your address and someone who works, who's able to give a guarantee to say, good, like, to come share to you can be able to lead us to the person. Okay. And guess what? Her business grew fantastically. That's an example. Because you're giving out loans that you are able to manage. So I think as long as someone has got a good idea and you can be able to see that with the idea that they have, we can be able to ring fence our money, then why not? If it's working for Command Agriculture, where all these farmers are being given my inputs, and collateral, and goro ya ku GMB. So why can't the banks be able to do that? So again, it's the issue. Like, you know what? Sometimes we, the Zimbabweans, our worst enemies, we need to bring back indigenous banks into this country. There's no point in us having Stanbic, all these foreign banks, because they don't empower the locals. But when I trust, they empower people. So that needs to be sorted out. If the financial sector is not sorted out, where people can access loans, we're not about the way that they're doing. When I take a motor out of their boots. Yes. But you can tell Kutumun, like, okay, I'm taking a motor to say boot quacking motor. Kutatanza collateralize a motor again. But I don't know. But business regular fire. You see? Yeah. My grandmother in Kumfako Soko. Right on 4 years ganzim zukuru. Nduguda ma counter book. Usatenge ma 2 pads, ma 2 ply, whatever. She was selling my counter books. She's making money from that. Yes. So you can tell the average Zimbabwean person has got an entrepreneurial mindset. But that entrepreneurship here, we're not able to harness it because my bankers, the banking system in Zimbabwe is actually an enemy of the state as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay, that's quite interesting. I pretty much enjoyed Kutsiza Kwacho. It was just a whole interesting topic. As youth is Wenika, I enjoyed much of the conversation. But I actually heard in diabetes being recalled to Parliament. So are you planning to give us, Kakambik or something?
That's one of you have been I'm a farmer these days, so I'm in touch with the earth. So I think Mazwano do know we run a name of waters and not my hustlers.
Not my hustlers. Thank you very much for joining us today. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the viewers learned a lot from the whole conversation, because in as much as Tirima Youth at TCB, and you had so much information packed, and I'd like to say thank you, Honorable, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching the show. This was Policing the Policy. We always give you information that has to do with the youth. Nema policies, you learn 1 or 2 things at the end of the day. My name is Yahya Goodvibes at the time, and I'm signing out.